6 months ago, I released the first episodes of this podcast.
Radio Cornwall.
And have you heard of biochar? Well, a new project in Cornwall is looking into just that.
We saw that Tom Previte had gone from covering carbon removals as a journalist to setting up his own biochar startup. We definitely had to get on the program.
Tom Previte of the Carbon Removal Show and also of Grounded, which is his new podcast about starting a biochar company in the UK.
Going global? Not quite, perhaps. More like going climate or going Cornwall. But you guys seem to like it.
I love that you're basically like full-time lifestyle vlogging and like recording like your whole life.
It was such a nice moment I spent listening to the podcast. You have not opportunities to hear about the experiences of someone that has involved on the biochar aspect.
I just love how like bold and vulnerable you're being in this whole thing, and you just sound like you're learning loads. It's really cool.
So we're back for another season to pick up where we left off. I'm Tom Previte, and this is Grounded, a climate startup journey. If you're new here, you'll probably want to rewind back to season 1, where I decided to start a climate business making something called biochar on a farm in the English countryside. I worked out how to do it.
You have to have a sustainable, reliable feedstock source. It is producing enough feedstock to meet your needs.
Where to do it.
We are very keen to support and encourage wherever possible businesses that are in that new green economy in Cornwall.
And who to partner with for the equipment.
3 cubic metre box, 5 from the bottom like your wood stove. Basically it dries, then it goes into pyrolysis.
I even raised my first few £1,000s. And that's our first buyer.
Yeah.
That's them.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Amazing.
And crucially, I also decided to make a podcast about it. The good, the bad, and all of the crises of confidence in between.
Don't know why it's so difficult to talk about.
And getting real for a minute, sharing my first business steps with the world has been overwhelming. Mostly because of all the lovely words that so many of you have sent in, the reviews that you've left, the questions that you've asked, and the experiences that you've shared. Really, truly, thank you. But with all that support, as spring turned to summer, I couldn't help but feel the pressure was on. I now had to deliver. So, this season, I tried to make some biochar. Before I could start making the good stuff, there were still some pretty big steps to go through. You last left me in June, and by now I was all in. Savings, months of time and energy, and a podcast broadcasting to the world what I was up to. But crucially, I still didn't have all the money I needed to make this happen. I did have some. I'd raised funds from the Future Leaders Network to go towards this podcast, and I was delivering on that at least. I'd also set up a crowdfunder with the promise of up to £15,000 match funding from Cornwall Council, and thanks to the support of so many of you, that was climbing towards its target. Finally, I'd pre-sold some carbon removal credits to the architectural firm Bennett Associates, which felt like a huge vote of confidence in both me and the project. But while it gave me some much needed cash flow, it also tied me into agreed delivery dates, and these are fast approaching. Specifically, I'd promised to deliver the first 25 tonnes of carbon removal by making about 10 tonnes of biochar before the end of the year. Well, that was now 7 months away, and I hadn't set up my facility or even raised all the capital to do so. And because I didn't want to dilute my stake in the business so early, and because my revenues from carbon credits could be limited in the first year, this meant more grant applications. Filling forms, gathering financial projections, and taking calls and interviews whenever I was lucky enough to make it through the first stages of the process. And of course, getting some words of wisdom from my dad when his schedule allowed.
Is now a better time, or are you still not? Are you still?
Yeah, I was looking at something else, but no, we can talk. No, let's talk.
Yeah. So what were you saying earlier?
Well, no, I just thought that the grant application was such a pig's ear of a document in terms of what you have to complete that I'm surprised they've managed to get any money out the door to anybody.
Yep. Some grants were more no-hopers than others. But the truth is, this gap between the money we had and the money that we needed, it wasn't a theoretical problem anymore. It was very real and pretty existential. It was time for an in-person father-son debrief.
The reality is that if none of those come through, or they don't come through in sufficient quantum, then you're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah? Because what other sources of funding are there?
Yeah, we'll need to try and find more grant funding, basically.
Yeah.
Then we've raised the crowdfunder by that point.
Yeah. I mean, can you if the thing doesn't go ahead, can you repay the crowdfunder?
And there for like 5 minutes while I get this pushchair out.
At that point, we were interrupted. Nephew sitting duties. But not even a talkative 1-year-old could lighten the mood.
I don't know how that works. You better check that with the crowdfunding platform and say, look, if there's a risk that things don't progress, and we have to throw in the towel,
thank you,
then when we got 10 grand sitting in the crowdfunding account, what do we do with that? We obviously want to give it back.
Yeah. What do you think, Sonny?
From my dad's perspective, I might have backed myself into a corner, and it was time to seriously consider a plan B.
I mean, the alternative, it's not what you're going to want to hear.
What is that?
The alternative is that you pursue all these sources of financing, and you get a job in the meantime, and you do this on a part-time basis until such time as you have certainty over the funding for the project, and then you progress with it, which might not be for another 6 months.
Yeah.
But that's obviously not what you want to do.
It's not what I wanted to do. And by this point, it's not what I felt I could do, given I had several tons of biochar to deliver by Christmas.
The other option is that we don't hire anyone. We don't hire anyone. I don't pay myself. And then we roughly halve the costs. Which could be a way to do it. Yes. Yes.
Yes, I don't know whether that's feasible or sensible. But see, I think it's too much. I think you're taking on too much then. You might drive yourself around the bend.
Yeah, I know, but that's the part and parcel, I guess.
Making a podcast, processing the work, making the biochar, grinding the biochar, storing it, moving it.
Yeah.
All on a just-in-time basis.
Yeah.
It's a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, I know, but it's not easy. It's not meant to be easy, is it?
No.
If it was easy, everyone would start businesses.
Still, that didn't mean that I couldn't try to make things a little easier. The Greenhouse is a 12-month accelerator out of Imperial College London, which supports early-stage or pre-seed startups wanting to tackle climate change. You get £20,000 equity-free grant funding, office and meeting space, mentorship, and a structured startup program to prepare you to raise funds after it ends. In other words, if I got in, it would provide some of the capital and the support that I really needed. I'd heard about the Greenhouse through the carbon removal grapevine. The program had supported a couple of other carbon removal startups in past cohorts. I felt like I could use some structure and guardrails with Restored, and it would be nice to be surrounded by other startups at a similar stage to myself. The initial application was your standard long-form questionnaire. What's the problem? What's our solution? Our USP? And so on. And excitingly, after passing the first stage, I was invited to a 2-day bootcamp / extended interview process at Imperial. I arrived late, and the room was already packed with entrepreneurs. About 30 startups from all parts of the climate space. There were even a couple of other biochar-related businesses there, including Capchar, my machine partners. In fact, after the initial workshops and speaking with other applicants, it quickly became clear that biochar alone wasn't enough of a differentiator. I needed to better define my offer.
So I wrote down decentralised biochar production.
Yes.
3 words.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Well, I know what all the words mean.
Okay.
What I don't know is what they mean together.
Sure. Would it be useful to just give you a very...
Yeah, give me 2 or 3 minutes of what it is,
okay.
What it's all about.
So that's Jeff, who gave me a mentor session after hearing my rough pitch. I launched into a personal career history, one that definitely took longer than 3 minutes. Then came the questions.
And the idea is that you would replicate this model on a farm-by-farm basis across the land, is that the idea?
Well, that's the challenge we have, because there's two challenges that we have. One challenge is figuring out how we replicate and scale, because we can take that decentralized approach, as I've mentioned, where we kind of do smaller machines, farm scale. But again, we need to pick a hypothesis and run with that for this pitch, obviously, and for this process. But it might be the case that ends up not being the most efficient way to scale, and a more efficient manner might be to kind of source larger machinery, which has a higher output in terms of biochar and carbon credits.
What are the bigger units? Is that farm clusters? How do you find a bigger unit?
It's more in it's in the. So it's a bigger unit would be like a larger machine. We're able to remove 100 tons of CO2 equivalents per year through the machine we have. And I guess a bigger process would be expanding that, so you can get a more continuous system that removes 1,000 tons a year.
But who would be the buyers of that? And apart from obviously larger farms, but because farms are farms,
yes.
And then how do they aggregate? They come together in farming clusters, for example, or is there a different way you could scale it?
No, I apologise, I misunderstood that. But yes, like a larger farming cluster would be a buyer of the physical char if you're scaling at large quantities.
To be honest, the question of how to scale this business felt like a long way down the track. I'd been so focused on getting this pilot off the ground and getting biochar into it that looking beyond the next 12 months was just not on my radar. But after the first day's workshops, our homework was to go away, take on the advice and learnings from the day, and refine our pitch.
Soil additive to meet the new needs of the Sustainable Farming Incentive Scheme, all through our unique decentralised supply chain. Right.
I'm not sure if I knew what our unique decentralised supply chain meant then, and I certainly don't now.
I've just been at this accelerator boot camp day, and the challenge tomorrow is pitching a more refined version of our business to everybody. So I'm going to be pitching Restored, our business model, our uniqueness, our targets, our activities, our assumptions. And they told me that it would take an hour to put this deck together, after the day ended at 5 p.m. It's just turned 12 a.m. So I've been working on this deck since I got home at 6:30, and my brain's a bit fried. And I don't really know if I'm pitching what I'm pitching, who I'm pitching it to, and how they're going to take it tomorrow. We'll see.
And beyond the pre-pitch nerves, the day had left me asking myself some big questions about this whole venture.
It does make me think whether this is the right sort of path to go down, because they're really focused on what's our uniqueness, because producing biochar isn't unique enough, or at least from what I understand, producing UK biochar isn't unique enough, and so I'm like trying to figure out what this uniqueness is, and I don't really know if we have one, or whether we should even have one, and if we do have one, what is it? Why is it unique? So it's actually left me quite. I left the day quite deflated actually. So there are some really cool companies doing interesting things, and they obviously do have very clear IP, very clear uniqueness. Kind of made me feel like my business is just like it made me feel like my business isn't really a special business, although it's special to me. Didn't really feel very special in that room, which is fine, because I don't, I picked, us doing this because I wanted to all I want to do is just remove some carbon. I just want to do that, and I want to get the pilot up and running, and I just wanted to learn from that process. And I don't know whether this is distracting from that, It's 12 a.m. I've been overthinking this way too much. It's just a bloody pitch, and I know it's not like the be all and end all. We'll see how we go tomorrow.
Day 2, the pitch. I sat listening to others and waiting my turn. There were some seriously impressive presentations.
Okay, tough act to follow. That was really amazing, guys. Is it okay if I put a microphone here to record this as well?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, hello everyone. Hope you're all feeling good after lunch. We're called Restored, and we're continuing the biochar train that is today. And I'm going to start by firstly talking about our key proposition. So it's very clear to us that UK businesses want to buy carbon credits from UK-based carbon removal projects. However,
after a slightly nervous start, I felt like I found my rhythm, and I even seized the opportunity for some cheeky podcast promo at the end.
Finally, I want to leave this with you guys. If you're looking to listen to something on your commute home, we essentially give a very transparent kind of journey on what it takes to start a carbon removal business. And full disclosure, it's not easy, and we're still figuring it out as we go along. So I'll leave that with you. Thank you very much.
It wasn't a long wait to hear back. A couple of days later, I got the email. I hadn't made it onto the accelerator. In the moment, it was pretty gutting. Every lost opportunity at this stage was a heavy blow, and another door closed to getting this project off the ground. But I also understood the reason why. The assessors had struggled to see how my business scaled. I wasn't inventing a novel technology or a brand new application of an existing one. Essentially, from the outside looking in, I'm just trying to make some biochar on a farm in Cornwall. They weren't sure if it was just a passion project or a serious VC backable business. And I didn't want to answer that question myself yet. I wanted to actually do it first. Make some biochar, learn through doing. But there had also been some good news. By now, the crowdfunder had met and exceeded its target. That meant I'd also accessed the match funding. I had another big chunk of cash to put towards my project. The message I was getting was that, for now at least, my focus had to be on making this pilot happen. People were backing me to make biochar on a farm in Cornwall. I wanted to make biochar on a farm in Cornwall, so that's exactly what I was determined to do. For months, I'd been based in London, with frequent trips down to the farm, but that was obviously going to have to change. So, over the course of the early summer, I started gradually transitioning my life 200 miles southwest. And almost as if the universe was telling me it was time to move, my final weeks in London had one big hiccup in store.
The other day, I had this car, the electric car, got broken into, and the thieves, whoever it was, smashed the side windscreen, stole my backpack, which had my laptop, my microphone with all my recordings in it, and a lot of recordings I've now lost, which is probably the thing I'm most upset about. My wallet and keys, etc. And it's like, I obviously then have to sort that out, which is just like another thing to think about. It's like, I don't want to think about that. Just like, I don't want to have to deal with that stuff. Just want to be able to do the business stuff. I don't know, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. Starting a business is hard.
Yes. Somewhere out there, somebody has some lost footage of Grounded. A loss for the world, perhaps, but definitely a win for my producer Ben, who was relieved when I told him he had a few hours less audio to comb through. Still, there wasn't too much time to wallow in self-pity. Besides, the electric car's days were numbered. I was ready for an upgrade.
And there's nothing else I need to sign or do?
All done.
She's mine.
Actually, you need to sign on the bottom of that.
Okay.
Down that side, sign and date.
Down here.
I was now the proud owner of a pickup truck, a 2007 Nissan Navara. Plenty of space and power to make some initial wood collections and biochar deliveries. It made my little electric feel like a go-kart, and might take a bit of getting used to. What's more, if I was going to transport some serious wood tonnage, I'd also need a trailer.
Well, pleasure doing business with you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for selling me this trailer. See how we get on.
should do what you want it to do, I would have thought.
Yeah, I hope so. Hope so. And then some. Right, attempt 1 at driving a trailer. Let's see how we get on. Big old squirrel. Handbrake off. Right, trailer is attached. Oh yeah, wow, that requires a lot more push. Oh my god. Back on the farm, there was work to be done. After assessing several different sites, we'd identified the foundations of an old Nissen hut as a good location for the machine, but it would need some major sprucing. Eventually, we'd need to get running water and electricity there, lay slate down on the surrounding area so that it wouldn't get too boggy in the winter, and empty a few nearby barns out for wood storage. But first, we went about clearing the site, getting rid of all the brush and brambles in prep for a new concrete base and shelter, where I'd base myself and much of my equipment whilst running the machine. Vital if this was going to be an all-weather operation, which, in the Cornish winter, it would have to be. Fortunately, I had some guys helping me, Greg and David, who were much more familiar with most of this machinery than I was. Unfortunately, it seemed like they'd given me a new nickname.
The boy boss. The boss boy. The boss boy. BB.
Things were moving so quickly that every time I spent a few hours away from the site, there'd been developments.
Did you see what they've done?
No, I haven't yet.
They literally just left back.
Should we go have a look?
I just missed them.
Oh, have a look. What have they done?
He wants to try and get the posts.
What, for the
lean-to?
Yeah.
So the bits of wood they're going to need for that structure and everything else is going to be about 600 quid.
600 quid? For wood? Bloody hell. Costs were mounting, even for the most basic things. But with Greg and David's help, I could at least see things coming together.
It's a big old machine, isn't it? But you've never had so many people watching concrete being laid.
Oh, I feel quite happily
And when I wasn't on site myself, I was out shopping. There's a list of things that I'm buying today. Water hoses, 30-litre plastic containers, fire extinguishers, 1-ton storage bags, pallets, PPE equipment like face masks and steel-capped boots, things like that. Shovels, screwdrivers, spanners, blow torches, silicone, some handheld trailers, chainsaw trousers, chainsaw helmets and muffs, chainsaw gloves, chainsaw pickers. There's all sorts. Turns out a carbon removal founder has to wear many hats. One week, you're pitching at a tech accelerator program. The next, you're cosplaying as a lumberjack. A lumberjack on a budget. Do you know of any good places I can get a second-hand chainsaw? Because I don't know if I feel like dropping 800 quid on a brand new one. With all this physical work, I'd at least be saving money on a gym membership. But that was about all I was getting for free. I'm making myself a cup of tea, but really I need a stiff whiskey because I've spent a lot of money over the last 2 weeks. Yeah, it's an odd situation to be in because we've technically sold our product, which is in this case the credits. Bennett's has bought those credits and we now need to deliver on them. And so it's just weird having a bank account which fills up and then knowing that it's not really going to fill up anymore for the next 6 to 9 months at least. And all I'm doing is just spending. And so every week or every day, there's more and more coming out of it. And so yeah, a cup of tea to make me feel better. Ah, the British. There's nothing a stiff upper lip and a cup of tea can't solve. But with so much money spent, it was looking like I'd initially have to do most of the hard work myself, unless or until I could afford to bring in help. Yours truly would finally be getting his hands dirty. In July, I popped up to London for some goodbyes for now, but it had to be a short trip.
It is 3:40 a.m. and I'm driving from London all the way back down to Cornwall. It's a Monday morning. It's the day after the Euros, so pretty sad. Pretty sad day for an Englishman. But yeah, I'm driving down because I am booked on to a chainsaw and cross-cutting course. Yeah, Dad thought that it would be a good idea for me to learn how to deal with wood. So I've got 3 days of chopping and cutting and handling. A bit delirious, it's very early. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'll keep you posted. Hi, morning. I think I'm signed on for a chainsaw course.
Yes.
Good start, Tom. You think you're signed up, do you? At least I was in the right place. The truth is, I hadn't expected to find myself back at school in my late 20s, and the classroom was never really where I felt at home.
In order to work with a chainsaw, you need this qualification. It's what we call a certificate of competence. Right? There are many things which actually require a certificate of competence. Chainsaws is one of them. Pesticides is another one, and there aren't that many more.
In other words, this was going to be quite crucial. But looking around, I realised I was missing something quite important. Almost everyone had brought their own chainsaw.
I've got nothing.
That's all right.
Other than gloves.
That's okay, we'll sort it out.
Okay.
A large part of the course was about chainsaw maintenance. But of course, we also got to have some fun.
Okay.
Away from your leg, so you're not taking any weight at the saw. Put it on your leg.
Okay, so it's actually a lot harder than it looks. I guess that's why I'm here.
Look at me, I passed.
It'd be awful if you hadn't. What's that? My teeth. Imagine after
You're
all
looking
that,
at
if you
a
hadn't.
qualified chainsaw user.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
Over a celebratory meal that night in the pub, I got the impression that my dad might be buying into this whole hands-on approach after all.
Many congratulations on passing the chainsaw
Cheers.
Chainsaw and cross-cutting.
We're very proud of this achievement and any others. Finally, something useful.
Something useful indeed. And back on the farm, I had the beginnings of a site to put my newfound skill into practice.
Wow. All right. Just walking up to the site. And the last time I was here, the concrete had been freshly laid. So there wasn't much else there, but now I'm here and the shelter is, oh my God. It's a big old shelter. Wow. It's a proper site now. Nice. So the machine's gonna go here. Just standing where the machine would be. Machine would be here facing the field. I'm under the shelter now. It looks like it's been pretty well built. Good job, David and Greg. It's all real now. All on Buchanan Farm.
Equipment purchased? Check. Site prepped for machine arrival? Check. Chainsaw license? Double check. Next up, sourcing some wood to process and getting the machine here to bung it into. And hopefully finding a way to keep paying for this whole thing. You've been listening to Grounded, a climate startup journey, a podcast from Restored. Thanks to everyone who chatted to me on this journey, whether recorded or not, and a shout out to the team behind the show, our producer and my creative partner in crime, Ben Weaver-Hincks, our marketing coordinator, Oluwaseun Sanni, our graphic designer, Liubov Pankiv, and Paola Sáenz, Jack Turnham and Lizzy Read for all of their work on helping promote the podcast. And a special thanks to the Future Leaders Network for supporting this podcast. If I could ask you to do just 2 favours, please hit that follow button wherever you're listening and give us a rating because it really helps, and share this episode with a friend or a colleague who you think might like what we're doing. You can find us on restord.earth. That's restored without the second E, .earth.